Story here in South Africa. The Council for the Advancement of the South African Constitution, better known as Casac, has made a formal submission as part of the latest round of proposed amendments to the country's constitution. The annual deadline for public input closed on Saturday, and Casac's submission zeroes in on one crucial area: the need to strengthen the legal and procedural framework around the impeachment of public officials, particularly in cases of gross misconduct. Well, to explore what this could mean for accountability and democratic integrity in South Africa, we're now joined by Lawson Naidoo, who's Executive Secretary of Casac. Lawson, always good to talk to you. Thanks so much for joining us on the program.
Good morning, Peter. Thanks. Good to chat to you again.
All right, so let's begin with an overview of what exactly your submission at the constitutional reform process entails.
So Casac this year has made a submission that focuses on what we believe is an anomaly in the Constitution. When it comes to an impeached president, the Constitution is very clear that an impeached president loses all the benefits of office, as well as not being able to hold any other public office in the future. That's very clearly spelled out in Section 89 of the Constitution. However, there are no similar provisions when it comes to judges who are impeached or heads of Chapter 9 institutions who are impeached through a proper process following an inquiry and then a resolution of Parliament to remove them from office. And we therefore believe this is an anomaly because that link of trust is broken when someone is removed from office for a serious transgression such as gross misconduct and the like. So or incompetence. And it's therefore important, we feel, that once that trust is broken, that such a person should no longer be able to hold public office, which includes becoming a member of Parliament, of the NCOP, a provincial legislature, or indeed a municipal council.
All right, so just to be clear, that person needs to have been impeached. When we say gross misconduct, what are we actually talking about here? How is it defined at the moment?
Well, it's specific to the office concerned. So in the case of a judge, it goes through a process of an inquiry by the Judicial Service Commission, the Judicial Conduct Tribunal, and the like, and that body will determine whether a judge has breached their oath of office in terms of the conduct that has been demonstrated or has been complained about. And once such a finding of gross misconduct in relation to the duties of a judge is established by such a committee of the JSC, a resolution of the JSC is then forwarded to the National Assembly for that resolution to be passed by the House, and once it is, that person is removed from office. Similarly, with the head of a Chapter 9 institution, these are independent institutions set up in terms of the Constitution, and again, it needs to follow a robust process where there's an inquiry by a committee of Parliament that looks into the complaint or the alleged behavior that constitutes either incompetence or gross misconduct, and only then is the Assembly itself in a position to pass a resolution. So these are issues of misconduct that relate to the functions of that office, that relate to the ability of that person to perform that office.
So I guess when the Constitution was first drafted, we had not seen or anticipated that we would be in this situation, but in recent times we have seen judges and Chapter 9 leads impeached for the first time. I guess this is how the loophole came to the fore for you.
Well, it's something that's always been there, Peter. I think it was merely an oversight when the Constitution was being drafted in the mid-1990s. Attention was placed, as I've said, on the position of the president. But that level of scrutiny did not, unfortunately, filter down to other people who, in terms of which the Constitution makes provision for an impeachment. And it's in only those three instances, the president, a judge or a head of a Chapter 9 institution where there are provisions for impeachment in the Constitution. So it's really, it was an oversight. And of course, Peter, you're absolutely correct. There have been a couple of examples recently of impeached former heads of Chapter 9 institutions, as well as an impeached former judge who have become members of the National Assembly. So that certainly has brought it to the fore. But this, we believe, is an opportunity to correct that, because it is also about restoring trust of the citizens, of voters, in that people who are in Parliament are people who are beyond reproach.
Does your submission also touch on the roles of Parliament or the judiciary in enforcing accountability measures?
No. This is a very specific proposal, Peter, that really highlights what we believe is a gap in the Constitution and oversight that needs to be closed. Obviously, when it comes to issues around, the disciplinary processes, for example, in respect of judges in particular, I think we've seen recently how slow the JSC is in dealing with complaints of misconduct against judges, and that's something that needs to be dealt with. But we're not dealing with that in this proposal. That needs to be dealt with, I think, in a broader forum, looking at the JSC. And I think there are steps that are being taken there towards that. Similarly, with the impeachment process for heads of Chapter 9s, I think lessons were learnt from the process we went through a couple of years ago with the former public protector, Busisiwe Mkhwebane, and how that process can be streamlined and strengthened to exercise more effective oversight by Parliament without drawing it out in the manner in which that process was.
This is the one area that you've zeroed in, but are there other areas that came to mind that you perhaps are not chasing at the moment?
Look, I think, there are a few issues in the Constitution that need to be looked at. Just to start, Peter, 2 or 3 years ago, Casac made another proposal, which was to rationalize and consolidate some of the bodies under Chapter 9 of the Constitution, particularly the human rights bodies. And we put forward a proposal for a single human rights body that would incorporate the existing Human Rights Commission, the Gender Commission, the CRL Commission, and the like under one body. That flowed from the Kada Asmal report of the National Assembly back in 2008, which has not yet been implemented. And in that vein, Peter, I might also mention that Casac will be convening a conference in September this year that is going to be a critical review of the Constitution 30 years after it was passed by Parliament in 1996, honing in on issues as to what mechanisms in the Constitution need to be strengthened in order to realize the vision of the Constitution, in particular when it comes to issues such as socio-economic rights. How do we strengthen accountability and oversight mechanisms in the Constitution? How do we strengthen the role and the independence of the judiciary as well as other independent bodies? So that's a more broad-ranging conversation, which we believe is critical, that there needs to be a critical review of the Constitution on an ongoing basis in order to keep our democracy healthy and strong.
I suppose on the face of it, it doesn't look like there's going to be much of a challenge in terms of making sure that judges and Chapter 9 institution leads are brought into the same frame as the president, right?
One would have thought not, Peter, that this is going to be a political process, but we believe that this is, it was simply an oversight in the drafting of the Constitution, and something that now that we've brought it to the attention formally of the Constitutional Review Committee of Parliament, that it's something that they need to address. It should not be controversial. And we certainly hope that the committee will take it on board. We've made an offer to the committee to make an oral submission to support the proposal that we've made, so that Parliament can engage with us on this and look at a mechanism whereby such a constitutional amendment can be put through, we believe and hope, quite swiftly.
So what happens now? You make a submission. What's the next step, and at what point will we see, if it does happen, a change in the Constitution?
Well, the committee, I'm sure, will have been inundated with submissions by the deadline of this past Saturday. They will then have to go through those submissions and categorize them, I suppose, in some way. And we certainly hope that the Casac submission will be one of those which they will take seriously, that they will call us to make an oral presentation to the Joint Committee, and then it's up to the committee to determine the way forward in terms of its report to the two houses of Parliament. That this is a constitutional amendment that needs to be promoted, and hopefully that can be done, in as short a space of time as possible.
Lawson, a lot of things have happened since the Constitution was written, 1990s, early 90s. Would you say that it still stands up in 2025? Or we've had a lot of examples, we've gone through a lot of things, including state capture, where maybe the Constitution has been found wanting?
Thank you for that, Peter. I think that, it's an important question. Constitution was passed in 1996. I would say that the Constitution has stood the test of time. And I think the example you use of state capture is an important and interesting one. In that, I think at the end of the day, as battered as our Constitution, legal framework and institutional frameworks were battered during the state capture years, the Constitution stood out. It held its own. And it's one of those things, along with an independent judiciary, a vibrant civil society, and independent media, that actually rescued South Africa from the cusp of disaster. So I think the Constitution has done its job. It can certainly be strengthened. It can be improved. A lot of it has got to do with the mechanics of how we implement aspects of the Constitution, how we put together the policies and legislation to give effect to the aspirations that are set out in the Constitution to create an improved quality of life, of reducing poverty, of creating an economic environment that is more inclusive. So those are practical measures and the Constitution provides the framework. We've now got to focus on the nuts and bolts of how to make that work.
And civil society and the public in general, do you think that we know our Constitution well enough and know our rights well enough? Or do you think there's a lot of work that still needs to be done because people may find that their constitutional rights are being abused and they have no idea about it?
Indeed, Peter, I think there's a huge amount of work to be done in terms of public education, public awareness about the Constitution, what it actually says and what it doesn't say. Because a lot of the time we find that the Constitution is scapegoated for the failures of government policy, of lack of implementation, failure of service delivery. These are not issues that emanate from the Constitution, because as I say, the Constitution is clear in terms of the kind of society we wish to create. The failings lie within the political administration as well as the bureaucratic administration of the state to actually implement that. So I think we need a lot more education about the Constitution, but also about the rights and responsibilities, how to hold elected officials to account, how to create a more an environment of greater accountability. And I think a lot of that has to come down to the issue around reform of the electoral system, the process that is currently ongoing. And we hope that through these various processes, people will become more engaged, because the Constitution is only strong as the people's ability to assert it and to ensure that there is performance by state officials, whether elected or civil servants, actually implementing and realizing the outcomes of that Constitution. So accountability is a huge challenge for us. We've seen it in the past, again through the state capture era, and we believe these are aspects that are ongoing. There are many South Africans who were not alive or not aware of what was happening in the mid-90s when this Constitution was negotiated at the Constitutional Assembly and then passed. So we need to bring the new generation of South Africans up to date with what the Constitution is, how it can benefit our society, how it needs to be implemented, and the powers that it gives to ordinary South Africans. So it's really a question of ordinary South Africans taking ownership of this constitution and ensuring that the vision that is laid out there by our forebears is one that this generation and forthcoming generations can realize.
All right, and coming back to your submission, perhaps as a last question, is it just the judiciary and former Chapter 9 leads that are missing in the loop? Are other people dealt with in other parts of the law and constitution? For example, things like police commissioners, etc.
So the point here, Peter, is that these are the only three offices that are president, judicial officers, and heads of Chapter 9s where the Constitution makes specific provision for their impeachment. Other senior officials in the public service, like you say, the heads of the SAPs, the National Director of Public Prosecutions, other agencies, state agencies set up in terms of the Constitution. They may be removed from office, but I'm not sure that the same provisions would apply. Certainly, I would imagine and hope that such a person who, if removed from such a senior office in the state, is not then rewarded with another position within the state. But that's something I think our appointment processes for senior figures, especially that within the law enforcement sector, need to be strengthened.
All right, Lawson, we'll leave it there for now. Thank you so much. Always good to talk to you. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
That's Lawson Naidoo, the Executive Secretary of the Council for the Advancement of the Constitution in South Africa, speaking to us about their submission that the judiciary, as well as heads of Chapter 9 institutions, should be treated in the same way as a president who may have been impeached. So at the moment, the Constitution, the way it's written, doesn't specifically say what happens, and it can be that these two categories were left out, probably by mistake or an oversight in the original drafting of the Constitution, and they want to correct that and make sure that these people will no longer be fit for purpose to hold any other public office after their impeachment.
Mornings made better.